Hello and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. My name is Joris and today I'm going to talk about VW or VW or Volkswagen and how it is driving itself into a total loss. Whether or not that's true, I'm going to talk about that today. So, the last couple of months we have a lot of different headlines speaking books about Volkswagen. So, a few months ago, we have the German top industrial union to demand a 7% rise from Volkswagen for the workers in Germany. A week or so ago, we had an historic moment for Volkswagen. Automaker plans to close at least 3 German plants and cut thousands of jobs, not to mention the fact that they want to cut the pay for the workers in Germany by 10%. So we have a lot of things going on, and it's the union against the management, and that's not great at all, of course, for the stock. And then we have another thing, and that is there is the trial going on in the UK about Dieselgate, and there we have Martin Winterkorn that needs to defend himself in front of the jury because, yeah, the Dieselgate scandal. That's where it all began for Volkswagen with Dieselgate. It began in September of 2015. Actually, they already noticed something wasn't correct in 2013 and 2014, but they could finally prove it in September 2015, and then they made an official statement about it in the United States, and the EPA said that there was a violation of the Clean Air Act by the Volkswagen Group. So what did Volkswagen actually do? Well, they made it so that their turbo diesels were programmed to activate their emission controls only during lab testing. So you had the cars with AdBlue edition, and when they were being tested on a test bank or test bench, I should have written, but you know what I mean. The front wheels, they were turning because, yeah, most of the Volkswagen cars have front wheel drive, and the back wheels were standing still. So the computer knew, hey, I'm being tested. I need to activate my emission controls now. And by doing so, the NOx output was lower in the lab than on the road. So the Volkswagen cars seemed actually more cleaner than what they actually how they actually were on the road. And yeah, that's a clear violation of the Clean Air Act. So there we had a lot of costs. You had to recall, they had to renew the software in all the cars. And in the US, the Volkswagen Group settled in June of 2016 for $14.7 billion. So that was to settle all the civil charges, and they also were fined in April of 2017 to pay a criminal fine of 2.8 billion. But that's not all, of course, because they sell cars worldwide. So worldwide, up to now, they have paid $33.3 billion in fines and settlements. In Europe, there are still civil actions running. Actually, I should have joined one of those civil actions because we had Charan that was also equipped with a Dieselgate engine. And after the software update, we had a lot of problems with our car because one of the sensors was always giving a fault. So we really had a lot of trouble, and still we liked the car a lot. Our Charan was great. And there are also still civil charges running in the US, but actually that shouldn't be the case anymore because there was a settlement in June of 2016. But you know how the juristic system works. It is just silly in every country, in every part of the world. And in the USA, it's especially stupid. You can see that on all the the manuals that are written with electrical appliances, where they explicitly say that you can't take an electrical device with you into the bathtub because that can be a danger. Here in Europe, everybody knows that, but in America, it seems that a lot of people are so stupid that they don't realize that, and then they get electrocuted and then they sue the firm. I think that's their own fault, but in the US, yeah, there they can put a claim towards the firm for being stupid, and then the firm has to pay. So that's why those booklets in the US are 3 times as thick as here in Europe. But that's just a side note for this video. There are other costs as well, of course, besides the recall and putting in the new software. There was a loss of trust. And you know the saying, you spend decades to build trust, and it only takes a few seconds to lose it all. And then, when you want to rebuild it, it takes a lot of time. And yeah, it happened in 2015, and people haven't forgot about it yet. So Huawei still needs to work on it for sure. So you also had the legal pressure in Germany to produce more clean cars, and this drove them towards electrical cars. And they rushed it a bit, I think, because they were okay, and they are okay, but they still missed by a mile. So their range was too low. The batteries that they used weren't actually that great, and that's still strange to me because they had a cooperation with BIT in 2009 that they started, and BIT has really great car batteries. So how it comes that their range was too low, I really don't understand it, but that's a question for you guys. When you know it, put it in the comments down below. And also the price, yeah, their prices of their cars, they were very expensive, in fact. They were almost as expensive as the cheapest Tesla, and sometimes they were as expensive, sometimes even more when you put all the extra stuff on it, and it depended a lot on the model. They were actually lucky that, yeah, in Europe you had a lot of premiums being paid out by governments to switch to electrical cars. So a lot of companies bought their employee cars from the Huawei group, and if those, yeah, how do you say it, those money donations weren't actually made, I think Huawei would have performed way worse in the past few years. But now, of course, yeah, a lot of those premiums are falling away, especially in Belgium. So yeah, they are having a harder and harder time to sell their cars. And their technological, yeah, how do you say it? Their technological evolution wasn't as high as that from Tesla. So Tesla, when they have something new, they just put the new update out. All the cars that are around, they download the update, and suddenly their car drives much better. So that that isn't actually possible with the electrical cars of Huawei yet. It's going to be in the future, but it's not yet so far. And you have also a lot of cheap Chinese alternatives, and they are actually just as good. And that's not what you want to have. You want to have better cars, clear better cars than the cheap Chinese alternatives. But the Chinese companies really worked on the range. They also increased the interior of their cars. Also the silence of the cars is much better because you don't have a combustion engine anymore. So that's why Chinese alternatives are actually gaining in popularity here in Europe as well. So they missed the ball, but not all cars being sold are electrical cars or hybrids. And there, that is a point for sure. So it is true that there are still a lot of cars being sold that are not electric and not hybrids. And you can see that for VW as well. They are still selling a lot of cars, but they are selling less than in the previous year. And by being focused on developing the EVs, they forgot to also keep an eye on what they were or should be also good in. And they still don't understand, I think, that they are also good in producing family cars. So if you look around, you have to count how many Charans and Tourans you see still driving around in your neighborhood. So in the city where I live, I can count for every 15 cars that I see, I always see one Charan or a Touran. And that's a lot. And that's because, yeah, when I'm driving around, when I'm walking around, it's the time when families are driving their kids or are driving around for going to shops with their kids, and families with 2, 3 children, they need family cars. But Huawei, they focused on electrical cars that were too expensive and weren't for families. They were for businessmen. And you have other cars that you could buy. So you have the Caddy, and people will buy them, the Caddies, but only when their old car, their old Charan or their old Touran breaks down. My wife and I as well, we drove our Charan until it was completely broken down, and when we wanted to repair it, it would have costed 10,000 euros, and we didn't want to spend 10,000 euros on our car of yeah, how old was our car? 14 years and a half old was our car, so it was uh, it was actually a pity that we lost our car. If it didn't break down, we were still driving it. Now we are driving a Fortuneo. It has a Huawei engine, but yeah, it isn't a Huawei anymore. The rest of the people, they just keep on driving with their Charans and their Tourans, and they like it a lot. And normally they would have changed their car already 2, 3 years ago, or they would change them now, but they are just waiting for a company to come out with a good family car. Every every family that I ask, do you like the Touran that you are the Tourneo that you are driving, or do you like the Caddy that you are driving? They say it's the best car, it's the best option that I got right now, but I actually don't like it that much. And that's the same for me. It's a good car, but I liked the Charan way more. So they have to refocus. So they have to refocus on their strengths. They have to build reliable cars for businessmen and for families. They have to focus on their car building and car designing capacities, but not like the ID Bus. I don't like that car at all. They think they designed a great car, and it is an okay car, but it's not a thrilling car. I don't understand it. Okay, the old VW buses, they are iconic, but the ID bus, it's not it. They should focus more on other cars. The ID bus, it is there. They can continue to produce it, but it's not a wonderful car. And they should focus on their great technological knowledge. They are joining forces with Rivian, and they have a collaboration with Xpeng. And with Xpeng, they have the EE architecture that they are going to implement in China, and this is going to, yeah, deliver the advanced driver assistance system that they are working on, so the ADAS, and that is what they are really missing compared to Tesla. So I hope that this is going to turn out great, but yeah, it's going to take a while before we know how it is going to go, because they are going to implement it from now on till 2026, and then you have to gather a lot of data, a lot of information. So it comes with a lot of costs as well, because when you want to store the data, you have to pay a lot of money. So it's a long way to go, but at least they are working on the software and on the advanced driver assistance system. And that is really good news in comparison to what we have so far. Sadly enough, they are also going to cut. They are also going to cut the costs, and that's because they have a really hard time competing with the cars from China, because they are produced way cheaper than the cars that are produced here in Europe. Also, Tesla is producing a lot of cars in China right now. They are building a huge factory in Germany. They are actually expanding it further. But yeah, in China, they are actually producing a lot of cars as well. And I think that fighting fire with fire, so just shouting louder and louder and louder with threats against the union of threatening to close down 3 of the 10 factories in Germany, that is not helping. You need to go into dialogue with the union, explain them what is going on, explain them with numbers, and just communicate clearly, instead of just saying, yeah, here the factory workers, they cost a lot, yeah, but management costs a lot as well. So if you are cutting jobs at the normal working force, also look at the higher working force and cut positions there as well. That's not what a lot of people want to hear, and that's not it's not fun to hear that when you have to cut jobs. But there are a lot of jobs created at Tesla, so take your chances there and find a new job. The people working at Huawei are wonderful people. They have a lot of knowledge that they can use for doing other things in Germany. I think we here in Europe, we are always playing the dwarf against the giant of America, but we should be more proud of what we can do. We can make companies that are really great. We have Siemens, we have SAP, we have in the shoe business, we have On. We have so many great companies, Unilever or Unilever, Nestle, AB InBev, all great companies, and it's like the only companies that exist are American companies, but that's totally not the case. We should be more proud of our European companies, and we should be more adventurous in making new companies and really supporting them as well. Putting more money towards our European economy, that is truly helping our local economy. And yeah, I'm all for that. I'm always talking about also investing into European ETFs that promote European companies and not only investing into the US, because yeah, it's really annoying to be a European investor, and it's like you are being laughed at when you invest in European companies, and that's totally not correct, because we have great European companies. And in the a few days ago or a week ago, Volkswagen reported results for the first 9 months, and they have sold 6.5 million cars. So their number is going down with 4%. Their sales revenue is actually up with 1%. So that's a bit counterintuitive, but they sold less cars with more options, and the prices rose as well. So that's why it's up with 1%. Their operating result dropped with 21% to 12.9 billion. And then their outlooks for 2024, so the sales are going to drop from 322.3 billion in 2023 to 320 billion in 2024. Their operating margin is going to drop to 5.6%, so more or less 18 billion they are going to have as an operating result. Their net cash flow is going to be 2 billion. Net liquidity outlook for 2024 is 36 to 37 billion, so that's really still really good. And for me, the results really aren't as bad as they seem to be, and that's because mostly the operating result is that much more negative because of the higher fixed cost and because the restructuring provisions, and especially the restructuring provisions, are causing this number to be more negative than it should be. It should be around -10, -11% with the fixed cost. And yeah, when they sell less cars, they will have lower and lower and lower operating results, and that's a normal thing because the fixed costs, they are fixed, of course. And yeah, the difference between the profit and the fixed cost, it gets, for every car that they sell more above their fixed costs, that's just net revenue. So that's the way it works in the car industry. You have low margins, but the more you sell, the more you make profit. So this isn't great at all. Selling 4% less cars in the first 9 months, but in the bigger picture, they are actually still selling a lot of cars. So even though they had the negative thing with Dieselgate and also their models not being really great for people right now, the other companies have the same. So Stellantis is also selling less. Um, the Mercedes group is selling less. Yeah, it's overall the car companies in Europe are having a tough time just because Chinese cars are actually producing nice cars. So Chinese companies are actually producing nice cars. Then the Volkswagen Group overall. So this is their small resume of all their parts. So the Traton Trucks Group, they still had a strong result. I'm going to talk about that later on. The sport luxury cars, they had a decline to 14.6% of operating margin, but still that's still really great in the car industry to have an operating margin of around 15%. And the group mobility was also still performing okay. CARIAD sales revenue increases driven by stronger demand for software licenses. So the operating result was below previous year's level due to development costs. So yeah, you need to develop. So yeah, it's the way it is. And that is the red line between all the results that you see in the Volkswagen Group parts, it's always the restructuring costs, the development costs that are weighing on the results. And that's to be expected. And it's sadly, yeah, a reality that they are going to have to cut costs and make provisions for restructuring. Audi also reported results a few days ago, and they had 1,251,381 cars delivered, so not sold, but delivered. And that's a decline of 10.9% compared to the previous 9 months in 2023. And the deliveries of fully electric cars decreased by 5.9%. The revenue fell by 8.2% to 46.3 billion euros. So still 46.3 billion euros. But as I said, the fixed costs, they stay the same. So when you drop 8.2%, that means that you have that amount of difference less profit. And the operating profit fell like this to 2.1 billion euros. The operating return on sales was 4.5%, so even lower than for the Volkswagen Group, 5.6% there. And net cash flow was 3.8 billion euros. Lamborghini in the Audi Group was still performing great, and that was actually keeping up the numbers a bit. So that's a great thing. But once again, provisions for closing down Audi Brussels were weighing on the results. And the good thing is, as an investor, you know that they already booked them in the third quarter, and they are only going to close Audi Brussels, or only, yeah, for the people working there. It's not funny to hear this, of course, but they are going to close the factory at the end of February of 2025. So they have an agreement with the unions in Belgium, and yeah, in Belgium you have the law of Renault, because yeah, when Renault closed down in Belgium, there was a lot of things going on, and then they made a law that all the employees need to be reimbursed accordingly. So normally, I hope that all the employees in Belgium receive the money that they have the right to receive, and that they can move on and get another great job in Belgium and continue, yeah, living a great life in Belgium. Traton reported the result as well for the first 9 months. So Traton, that's the group containing Scania, MAN, International Group, and VW Trucks and Bus. And this group, this is actually the best sign that Volkswagen Group is actually doing great when they are doing what they need to do. And Traton Group, they know what they need to do. So they make commercial vehicles, and they make one of the best commercial vehicles that there are. So they make great trucks, they make great buses. I think I missed an S here. And they make great light duty vehicles. And you see that in the results as well. So they have a 5% increase year on year in sales. They have a 5% increase in year on year revenue of sales. They have 9.6 increase for they have 1.2 percent point year on year increase in adjusted return on sales. So there you have 9.6%, so that's really great, around 10%, just below 10%. The net cash flow is 1.2 billion, almost 1.3 billion. So it's almost up double from the year before. The earnings per share is 1.45 euros, and that's up 5 cents year on year. And the incoming orders are just the same as the previous year. So Traton Group is performing great. They are still saying, yeah, it's a difficult environment and blah, blah, blah. But when your companies are making great vehicles, they are getting sold. That's just the reality. And they forgot to make great vehicles in so the cars that they produced weren't great. They were just fine. And producing fine cars against cars that are also fine from China, and those cars being much cheaper, then you're going to lose market share. So they need to work on that. And here, Volkswagen, it's the slide that I had on the 18th of October. There the price was 95.90 euros. The dividend was 9 euros, dividend yield 9.53%. Earnings per share then estimated 29.76 for the trailing 12 months. The payout ratio 30.2%. The PE ratio was 3.22, so really low, but it's a cyclical company. So the PE ratio, when it is low, but the earnings per share is going to drop, then you always need to be careful. But 3.22 is of course really low, so you have a huge margin there. And the positive points that I named then was the global presence, the focus on electrical cars, which is actually also a bit negative, their diversified range that they have. So they do commercial vehicles, they do trucks, buses, they do normal cars, they even have Ducati. And Ducati, yeah, if you watch the MotoGP, it's the best four teams were all driving with the Ducati. So the Ducati from 2024 and the Ducati from 2023 was the most dominant moto in the MotoGP. So yeah, it's Ducati is doing great as well there. The negative points, you have high production costs, so they need to cut costs. You have the range of electrical vehicles that isn't, in my opinion, not great. They should include more the family cars or have more an eye for family cars and really produce nice family cars, not the ED bus, because yeah, that's not a nice family car. You have room, but it's ugly. Highly competitive business, of course. And now we are the 8th of November, and look at the price now, 87.40 euros. You can see it here. Today it dropped 2.62%. The dividend, yeah, still 9 euros probably. The dividend yield 10.03% right now, brutto, not netto. And in Europe, yeah, you have a lot of withholding taxes to pay. So it's brutto, not netto. The earnings per share, they drop now to 24.43 because of the results of the third quarter being presented. The payout ratio is like that, increased from 30% to 36.8%, and the PE ratio is now 3.58. So still really low, but of course, yeah, the price dropped with around 10% since I made the other video on the 18th of October. But positive, you have the joint venture with Rivian coming up. It's going to cost 2 billion, but they already put that into the provisions for mergers and acquisitions. They also are working with Xpeng, and yeah, I already mentioned it with the ADAS system that they are working together in China. But remember, in 2009, there was a partnership with BIT as well. And yeah, you know where they are now with that partnership. BIT is taking over market share in Germany. And Lamborghini and Traton are still doing great, so that's also positive. And negative points, yeah, Volkswagen, needs to restructure, Audi needs to restructure, so Audi closing down Brussels, that's already a fact. What is going to happen in Germany? I don't know. Probably they are going to close one or two factories, relocate 10-20% of the workers there to one of the other factories, so produce more cars in the 8 facilities that are left. Then the they are fighting with the union in Germany about that, so that's not great as well. The China cars that are coming in, they are nice as well, just like the cars from Huawei, but they are cheaper, so that's really tough. Then BIT. So here, remember, partnership in 2009, but now BIT even bought Hedin Electric Mobility from Traton Group, and that's the German distributor for BIT cars and parts. And like this, now BIT has actually more pricing power in Germany. So again, more competition. This means more competition, so that's actually also not great news when you read that. And then for me, they need to focus on making a good replacement for a Charan or a Touran. And yeah, you have the Caddy and you have the Multivan and you have the ID bus, but man, it's not what it needs to be. If you look at the Charan and Touran, those were nice cars to look at, nice cars to drive with, and the Caddy, it's too straight. Yeah, it's annoying to drive with, but it's yeah, annoying. And as you know, in the U portfolio, I bought around this period at 99.50 euros. I bought the 2 shares that I have of Volkswagen, of VOW or VOW or VOW.de. You also have the VO3 stocks. Those are actually a bit cheaper. They are now 84 and a bit euros. If you want to buy those, you get the same dividend, so your dividend yield is higher then. But am I going to buy more? Not yet. As you know, I only have 200 Swiss francs to invest monthly as well, so I have to take that into account as well. And Volkswagen and Swatch are actually my more gambling positions because they are the highest risk positions in my portfolio. So I know that I can in the short time lose a lot of money there, but it's only virtual loss. That's really important that you know that you don't have an actual loss until you sold your shares. So I'm going to keep my Volkswagen shares because I like Volkswagen a lot. The next car I hope that we are going to buy is going to be a Volkswagen again, because I hope that in about 4 or 5 years, when we are going to buy a new car to replace the Tourneo that we have now, that they finally made a decent family car. It will drop more. I really think that it will drop more. I even believe that it's going to go down to 75 or even 70 euros, but I'm not worried or panicking at all. If it drops to 70, then I'm definitely going to buy more, because then it's going to be a drop of 33.3% more or less. And this means that I have an upward potential of 50% more than I even had in my head when I bought it at 99.50 euros. And today, Swatch as well lost a lot of money, so it dropped a lot. And that was just because of somebody that wrote an opinion in the cash. And yeah, it's an opinion, just like I have an opinion, but that opinion, of course, the cash, it's it's an online magazine that is read more than my my YouTube channel is viewed. So I have way less influence than an article on cash.ch. So yeah, it's the way it is. Now I went from a virtual profit to a virtual loss, and for me that's not a problem. In the long run, I know that Volkswagen will do great, and so will Swatch, and the road ahead will be bumpy for sure for both stocks, and we have a long investment horizon for both stocks. I think I will keep them at least for 5, 6 years for sure until they reach the level where I think they are sellable. And in the meantime, I think that even my levels will rise more. So maybe I will have them in my portfolio for even more than 6, 7 years. But yeah, with that being said, I thank you for watching to this one. Please consider subscribing if you like this kind of content. Hitting that like button helps out the channel as well because it helps distributing this video to other people that like this kind of content. And thank you for watching and see you on the next one. Bye.